Welcome to the New Reality Show, where you can call in live for laser coaching and engage in Q&A with Doctors Art Emmerich and Christina Winsey. Discover how to master the power of your mind, body, and spiritual energies. Get empowered to create your new reality for more happiness, well-being, and success.
Another show, Dr. Art. Here we are.
Here we go. And I'm going to be the mystery voice this time because my face is not something you'd want to see on TV right now.
Well, we love you. And whether we can just hear you or we can hear you and see you, It's just glad that you're here.
Well, Bell's palsy will make it a lot easier to look at when it's gone. They say it'll be about 3 months. So I hope it doesn't take that long. But anyway.
I hope not.
Here we go.
Yes.
I'm still trying to practice self-love anyway.
Hey, the topic for tonight is self-love.
Right.
And I'm pretty excited about this topic because it's so key to everything we want to accomplish in life. And it's so important to health, to mind, body, spirit, health, wellness and well-being and success. So I don't think there could be a more important topic. And in honor of love, I'm wearing pink and I have a rose that's pink behind me because pink is the color of love.
Great.
Yeah. So since we can't have any of your funny hats or your funny backgrounds, I thought I'd better do something.
Well, that's great. Not funny, but beautiful for sure. Yeah.
Well, good. So I just want to orient people who are new to the show. This is the New Reality Show, and I'm Dr. Christina Winsey, and you're hearing Dr. Art Emmerich. And the reason we started this show is because we wanted to help people with everything that's going on. People are in deep fear. They are anxious, they are angry, they are stressed, and we can only help so many people one-on-one. But when we get on the radio and you can call in and talk to us, get help from us, or just listen to the show and hear some of the solutions we bring to you, because we do our best to make practical solutions for you, then that is fulfilling our mission, and that is how we can help. So we're really grateful to be able to have this medium to reach more people.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things to me is we never know how many people are listening in or watching or where they are even. So we're trying to give a good international awareness to ourselves as we go through, because we really want to respond to the people that we can't see, but we help you there.
Yes, absolutely. So just a little housekeeping. If you want to call in, the toll-free number in the United States is 888-627-6008. If you're outside the US, you can dial direct 1-323-744-4831. And last housekeeping is probably pretty darn important, which is to thank our sponsors. We've got people who are our subscribers, I should say. We've got people subscribing to the show, and we are grateful that you are contributing to the costs that there are involved in having a show. It's a labor of love, and any donations that you give as a subscriber, we are extremely grateful. And if you go to our show page, you can just simply click on Become a Subscriber. You can do as low as $2.99 a month, all the way up. So we are grateful to our subscribers, and we hope that you will enjoy the show enough, the rest of you, to want to become a subscriber.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, let's start the show. And Dr. Art, every week you have a tip of the week. So I'm going to let you kick it off.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the reasons why we actually got involved in doing a show like this. And it was to help people who are really living much less of the life that they like to live. And what I found out was that it seemed through the research is that fear was the thing that really kept us from doing that oftentimes. And I heard this great idea that fear is an acronym, FEAR, stands for false emotions appearing real. So it's something often that hadn't even happened yet, but we go off in the future and imagine it not happening. And then we got fearful and that, oh, I'm not going to get what I want. And we come back to the present and we bring the fear with us, and it just messes up the present too. So as I was thinking about that, I said, well, what if somebody came to me and said, I'm living in a lot of fear. Please help me. What would you do for me? And I thought, oh my goodness, that's a global sized problem. We need to get it down to elephant sized bites here. And so I did some research and found out that the antidote to fear is love. And so I was looking up love in Hebrew. The word for love is ahava, and the HAV, the root of that word, is to give. And so I think from that, I would look for ways to help someone find something, somebody, some issue that they could give of themselves. And it really helps dispel a lot of the fear. So if you live in fear, look for somebody or something to love and give it a lot of yourself, and you'll find it's really curative. So one of the things that I started looking at also is the 5 languages of love. And so a lot of times people are not even sure what their own receptive language of love is, as well as somebody they would like to give love to, and maybe find out a little bit more about what their love language is also. So this is a book. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And it's Gary Chapman wrote this book. It's not a real current one, but it's been going on for a little while now. And so the first one that they mention is words. What do you say to someone? You speak your love in auditory, where they can hear you declaring how you feel about them, and have an experience of that. So I wanted to tell you about a thing that Dr. Chris and I hope all of you will adopt, is called body talk. Talk to yourself and say words of love to yourself. And anybody, I think I might have mentioned before, anybody that comes to see me to work on weight loss, the first thing I have them do before we start working, say, I want you to get a full-length mirror, go home twice a day, take all your clothes off, stand in front of the mirror, and turn all 4 directions while saying, I love you just the way you are. And when you can do that at the cellular level, I don't want you to just mouth the words, but I mean, really mean it. Now we're ready to start. And because if you hate yourself, it'd be kind of like having somebody that you hung around with a lot, maybe didn't appreciate them a whole lot, and you said, hey, you big, ugly, stupid sack of junk, how about loaning me $100? Well, guess what? They're not going to be inclined to cooperate. So you really got to start with your own, with yourself, loving yourself first. Now, I had a chat with I was told by my kidney doctor that I had some malfunction there. And so I decided, well, I'll start talking to my kidneys. And so I said, okay, before I start talking and tell you what I want, do you have anything you want to say to me? And so my kidney said, how come we work great for 70 straight years? We never heard a word from you, and we goof up one time, and now so we got to have this little talk. I said, ooh, I think I'm getting a performance appraisal here that I haven't been giving you the love that you deserve. So I wrote kidneys on my bathroom mirror in a erasable marker, and every day I'll get up and see that, and I thank my kidneys because they responded very well to our conversation. I had a request, and they complied with it. And my creatinine score went right down where it belonged. And my kidney doctor, meanwhile, thought I was a witch doctor or something. He didn't know what to make of it. But it's really interesting that your body listens to everything that you say, and it believes it because you are the queen or the king, whatever. And so if you say it, it must be right. So be careful what you say to your body, and certainly talk to it and the way you talk to a good friend. Your body ought to be your better friend than your best friend is, ideally.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
is so true, Dr. Art. And,
Mm.
you know, if there's something about your body that you're not happy with, you can talk to your body and say, I'm looking to change this,
Mhm.
and let's work together. Let me check in with you. What do you need?
Mhm.
Every day when I'm going to do my workout, I check in with my body. I say, am I up to doing this workout today?
Mhm.
And I listen very carefully. I feel very carefully inside, because if I'm just, no, I've got to do it, you know, and not listening to the ebb and flow of energy within my body, within my psyche, something
Mhm.
may be going on during the day, then I'm not honoring myself.
Mhm.
And so part of self-love is honoring yourself. And it's about knowing that you matter in all aspects of your life. You matter.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I have a few things here that I thought we'd talk about. You already discussed a little bit about why self-love is so vital, especially to health, and we're talking about it in relation to the body. The other thing I want to say is, if you are a parent, then if you're not loving yourself, what are you teaching your children? Because your children will psychically, quietly pick up on how you are more than what you say. So you
Mhm.
could say to your kids, you need to love yourself, but they're not going to believe it if you're not loving yourself. So if
Mhm.
you need a motivation, sometimes people need a motivation to move forward with finding a way to embrace self-love, or anything. And I find for parents, it's a huge motivation to know that who they be and how they are and how they feel about themselves, their kids are going to pick up on that.
Mhm.
And that's where most of us, I think most people would agree that our parents are a source of, depending on what they said about us, depending on how they did or did not support us, or talk positively to us about ourselves,
Mhm.
that can be a very deep wound in many ways, and can be the source of why we don't love ourselves. And so it's just a critical piece for parents to remember that it affects your children. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to bring that up.
Just read a really good article. They were talking about when your child has a failure of some kind, what does the parent say about it? Now, what could they say? And a lot of times parents start berating the child for not doing whatever they were supposed to do, whatever. And instead, they say if you can kind of divorce this thing that happened from them, it's not, they are not a failure, is they had an experience of failure. And so you start talking about it. So I guess you feel pretty bad now. Well, that immediately you establish some rapport because they think, oh, they kind of understand how I'm feeling. And you say, what do you think? What do you think happened? What do you think went wrong? And get them to get into out of their heart and into their head, so they can start looking at it and making decisions about it, and say, what do you think you could do next time, maybe to. And so you get into a problem solving activity with them instead of a criticizing activity with them, and it really pays off in the long run. So they don't ever feel like they're going to be attacked by this very important person, that they're going to be supported and helped to learn from it, whatever they do.
That is very, very important. And so, yeah, no, that's a great point. And for yourself, always remembering that, as Tony Robbins says, there's no failure, only feedback. I think it was he that said that.
Yeah, that's an NLP saying. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no failure, there's only feedback. So what is the feedback you're getting from your life? And, a lot of people, when they fail, they berate themselves. They use it as a reason to reinforce what they don't like about themselves or who they don't think they are. And I would like to go on with a few of the things I wrote down, but I think it's time for you to do your belief identity matrix, because those were very powerful points.
Okay.
I just want to do a quick station break. You're
Sure.
listening to the New Reality Show with Dr. Art Emmerich and Dr. Christina Winsey. We are here waiting for your calls because we do laser coaching and help you right on the air. So if you need some help with self-love or anything, whether it's anxiety or fear or any upset that you're having, or something that you need coaching on, then you can call in toll free in the United States, 888-627-6008. And if you are outside the US, dial direct 1-323-744-4831. Okay, Dr. Art, please go over your belief identity matrix.
Okay, this is also called the heroine's journey, or the hero's journey too. So I'm reminded of one of my favorite things that I hear when I listen to TV and hear some of these psychologists on TV. Who's the popular one now from Oprah Winfrey that made him famous? Dr. Phil.
Oh,
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil, yeah.
Yeah. One of his favorite things that he says that I love, and I don't know if I've captured it exactly, but he says, "Who do you think you are?" And so a lot of times we might not love ourselves. We don't know who we are really. So the belief identity matrix has to do with discovering who you are from 6 different viewpoints that you can kind of self-assess. And the first one is what is something that you would like to be, and you think you already are that, and that you will always be that. That's the way you identify your core. What's the essence of you? The things that make you who you are.
Can you give examples of what would be an essence? I think that's a little bit abstract.
Yeah. I can. It is what we were asked to do when I did this program was to don't think of yourself or something. Get a way to abstract this out. And so I tend to think in space and galactic and all that kind of thing. So my example of that was an evolving universe. Now we can bring this later back into, more personal things, but just imagine if you had the whole universe out there and you were just going to pick parts of it that you could be. And so I decided my core was that an evolving universe. And I'm not through yet. I'm still a work in progress. And I think I always will be. I want to be that. I think I always will be. And so that's an example of that.
So when you're thinking of that, is the point that thinking that way helps you to acknowledge yourself, to love yourself? Because
find out who are you at the core. Are you could go back and say, write down some descriptors. I'm a kind person. I'm a gentle person. I'm a caring person. I'm a loving person. That's my core. That's who I think I'm already that. I always want to be that. And, that's my home base kind of thing.
That's important. Yeah, because the universe, well, that's a bit abstract. So
Yeah, okay.
that's
A
you.
little too abstract. Okay. So the second question, what's something that you want to be and you believe that you might be able to become that? That's your potential. So
Mm,
we ask kids a lot of, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, boy, they can tell you a whole list of things, they want. By the time we get to be adults, we've kind of tapered away a lot of that stuff. And well, I guess I'll always just be who I am now. Well, is there something that you want? Is there a passion there that you haven't fulfilled yet? Something you'd like to be, and you think you might be able to do it if you maybe had the courage or the time or the money, whatever it takes. But that would be an aspirational level of your potential.
so in terms of self-love, that might be a tough question, because if someone really doesn't feel love for themselves, they
Mm-hmm.
might not feel that they have the ability to reach their aspiration.
To do,
So,
yeah. And it doesn't
yes.
have to be an earth-shaking change. It could be one thing a little bit different from what you are now, just one little thing that I'm going to take a course in poetry, or, just something different that you might not have ever done to expand what you might become, or what your
Mhm.
potential is. Yeah.
Okay. That's a simple step. That's a practical step that somebody could
Yeah.
take, because if they, let's say somebody aspires to be a writer, but their self-love, their self-image is not letting them get that far. So taking a poetry course is a
Mhm.
step towards becoming a writer.
Or
Or
keeping a journal, even
yes.
something simple, yeah,
Yeah.
that you can
Okay.
start on. Yeah.
Good practical step. Okay. Next.
So the third question is something that you would really like to be, but you're pretty convinced that you'll never be able to do that. That's a limitation. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for people struggling with self-love, that might be a lot easier for them to list all these limitations or something. But just to find out, how do you view your own boundary levels that keep you from being who you prefer to be,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so um,
And so by making that list, it can be a wake up call to what you're holding yourself back, how you're
yeah,
holding yourself back, and it makes you very aware of what you're telling yourself,
yeah,
because truly you can be whatever you want to be. But when you don't love yourself, when you don't believe in yourself, then these things, if you write down, I wish I could, I wish I could, I wish I could, and you hear this other voice that says, but you could never, but you could never,
yeah.
then that gives you an idea of what you need to work on.
And that voice thing is so important. Talking about the language of love being words, that we talk generally 150, 200 words a minute, but we can think at 300 to 600 words a minute. But we have 13,000 thoughts a minute because they're pictures, they're not words. And so,
Mm.
what's going on inside here, if you're in a negative frame of mind, you're giving yourself 13,000 bad images every second about what's wrong. And so, getting in charge of that is really important. So, what this the heroine's journey or hero's journey is 6 views of you as a self-assessment. It's not somebody else saying what they think, but this is you saying, here's who I think I am, or what I think I am, or where I am right now in life. And so this kind of brutal honesty is really important, just to open up and get a piece of paper that you can chew up later and swallow if you want to, not let anybody see it. But it's something that may reveal parts of you that you hadn't thought about before, and that
Mm-hmm.
may be what is keeping you from being what you want to be.
Well, this really ties into where we have limiting beliefs. And that's where there are some solutions that you and I both know are very powerful,
Right.
which are hypnosis, of course, emotional freedom technique, which we have a free set of videos and the manual. And if you just write into contact NR show, that's contact N for new, R for reality show at gmail.com, and we will get you those the videos and the manual to use emotional freedom technique. Can help you free you from the limiting beliefs that don't allow you to be what you want to be. And then we also there were a couple of things I wrote down that we can explain later on, which is one is called Ho'oponopono. And there are so many wonderful techniques that can help you get past these things, especially because when you are living in limitation and not loving yourself, they say that a life where you get to the end of your life and you wish you had at least tried, or you regret, is one of the most common things that people say at the end of their life is, I wish I had, or I regret. Yeah. So overcoming these things is just so vital to a happy, joyful life. Yeah. Okay. So there are three more, right?
Three more, yeah. Real quickly, the fourth one is, what's something that you don't want to be, and you're pretty sure that you will never be that? So if you say, I don't want to be mean, I don't want to be uncaring, I don't want to be whatever it is, and you don't think you ever would be, but you're just kind of putting yourself on notice that here's something that I think I'm safe, but I just want to make sure that I don't ever go there.
Okay.
The fifth one, well, something you do not want to be, but you're afraid that you might become. Now, that is a weakness or a defect, maybe of some kind, that it's something that maybe a temptation for you. If you have a fiery temper, maybe you say, I don't want to be a fiery tempered, but boy, I could become a real tyrant here if I'm not careful. So you just list that just to be aware of it. There's something to be on guard against or on watch for, and not let it interfere with your progress toward your goal.
Well, there's something even more about that, Dr. Art, that I think is vital. And that is that what you put your attention on grows and expands. Yeah. So being aware of what you don't want to be is very important, but it's more important to focus on what you do want to be, so that you're giving less and less attention and energy to to be constantly worried that you're going to fly off the handle, or you're going to jump into alcohol, or that is focusing on the negative. Whereas if you do the first one, which is, this is what I want to be, the first three ones that you mentioned, and putting more focus on that, then you're vibrating at a better frequency for attracting into your life what you want.
I think this is just so you don't blindside yourself, and you have a weakness and you're in denial about it, and it keeps getting in your way, and you never even know what in the world's going on. So just a kind of, again, a brutal honesty about who you are and who you think you are, who believe you are.
Sure.
The last one is something you don't want to be, but you're afraid you always will be that. And that's your shadow side. It's a part of you that you may never know anything about, and there may be no answer to that for you. So it's the idea. Then the description of the heroine's journey. I'll just read this paragraph, and it might give a little bit of context. A person sets out in life to develop or manifest more of their potential. That's what I could become. This leads the person to confront some limit that they have that reveals maybe a weakness or a defect. And that's why they haven't developed it already. The struggle with the weakness brings out the shadow. And facing the shadow, the person must rediscover the strengths that are their boundary. And eventually the person is able to reconnect with their core. This reconnection enables the person to transform the shadow, heal the weakness, transcend the limit in order to finally reach his or her greatest potential. That's supposed to be a description of the heroine's journey through life, that we go through this whole thing of trying to deal with all these 6 aspects of ourselves. And in the end, being successful, we reconnect with our core and have had a fantastic life. So I thought it was just kind of an interesting self-appraisal. And I do have some questions and things about it that might help people understand it better.
Yeah. No, I think this is really about self-discovery, which a lot of people don't reach the point of self-discovery until they're hitting that midlife crisis. Although one of the things that I've been impressed with the younger generation, even in their 20s, is that they seem to be very deep thinkers. A lot of the ones that I've met are very astute, very much about discovering who they are and what makes them tick. And so you don't have to wait till you're 40 to start working on these things,
No, really don't. And one of the interesting 2 things have happened recently in terms of the world of work, the people that are working still. One of them is that companies said, okay, COVID kind of scares over. You don't have to stay at home, work on Zoom. We want you back in the office. And they're having huge percentage of employees saying, I'm not coming back to the office. I like working from home. It's cheaper, it's easier, it's more convenient, it's everything. And so if you force me to come in, I quit. And the companies are not used to having young people just say, that's not something I'm willing to do. And the same thing is true with the COVID shots now. There are people that saying, I'm not getting a shot, and if you make me get a shot, then I quit. And the companies are just absolutely dumbfounded that people are so clear about their values and their standards, and they're not willing to compromise them, even if it costs them a job. And so I think the younger people maybe got a little quicker startup on this, kind of taking charge of themselves.
I think so. I've been very impressed with the younger generation and the level of depth of their thinking and their analyzing of what they want, what they don't want, who they are, what they believe in. It's really, really quite clear. Well, I would like to talk about, so I have written down, when and how is it that we are taught not to love ourselves? And we talked a little bit about being a parent, and one of the things that happens when you start to examine some of the things that Dr. Art said, the belief identity matrix and those 6 questions, is you may find that memories are coming up, or you may be very well aware of how your parents might have contributed to a lack of self-love in you. And it's not something that they, unless you were abused, they weren't aware that they were doing it, because they could only be who they were. I think the most important thing here is, what can people do to develop self-love? That's really the main point here, because as we've been talking about how much the lack of self-love can hurt you health-wise, can hurt you in success, can hurt you in relationships. When you don't love yourself, it's very, very difficult to give love and to accept love from other people. In fact, it's not really a joke, but it's kind of like, if you accept me into your group, then your group must not be good because you've accepted me.
Right.
So it hurts you socially, it hurts you emotionally. There are just so many reasons to develop self-love. And if you need help with developing self-love, is when you start to look for support. Okay. It's not necessarily something that you can reason out on your own, because your best thinking got you where you are now. So what I always say to people, they'll kind of poo-poo going for a coach or even calling into the show. When you don't get help, your best thinking got you where you are. So how are you going to get out of, know? The other thing is that a lot of people will just buy a self-help book and think that that's going to do it. Well, it can help them to a great degree if they're motivated. But a lot of people buy a self-help book and it sits on the shelf. So what I believe was absolutely vital when I was developing an ability to love myself and to feel good about myself was that I had support. So whether it's a coach or a therapist or even a best friend, somebody who you can talk it out with, support is really, really key if you're having trouble with self-love. So that's the first thing.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things from a hypnotic standpoint, again, is up until about the age of 7 or 8, we do not have the ability to protect ourselves from the things that people say about us to us. In fact, we build an self-esteem, we build an identity mostly out of what our parents tell us. So right now, if somebody said, well, Art, you're lazy, well, I've got a part of my conscious mind that developed. It's called a critical factor. And I can listen to that and say, that's not true. Man, I've done this, I must not be lazy, Well, a child, if you say you're lazy, you know what happens? They just say, oh, wait a minute, let me make a note of that, and they are building their image because they don't know. And they trust you. So for parents, please be careful what you say to your kids, because they have no filter at all. They can't block out anything at all that doesn't make sense to them or anything. It all makes sense. It's coming from an adult who should know. And so my job is to write this down and remember it so I'll know who I am.
Absolutely. This is also, unfortunately, what perpetuates child abuse, what perpetuates, whether it's verbal or physical, is that when a child is from 0 to 7 and they get abused, that's what they internalize. And it's like putting a rubber stamp, this is who you are. This is how you're going to be. Yeah. And it's very dangerous.
It's accepted. Yeah.
That's why people need support when it's that ingrained. And I remember it was a while back, a social worker who said that she was working with family violence families, and it seemed almost impossible for the adult to retrain themselves not to be violent,
right?
Because they had been so abused when they were kids. It is possible, but she found that there were a lot of cases where they gave up, or they just didn't do the work to make the change. And it does take work, and you can't do it alone. You absolutely need help. And
really,
so
we do need somebody to coach you through that, because it's just very difficult. So one of the positions we take in hypnosis now is that if you have an experience, it's going to be there forever. We cannot erase. It's permanently, maybe chemically etched into your neurology somehow. But as we said before on an earlier show, there's no meaning to that unless you give it a meaning. And the meaning is whatever you say it means, that's what it means to you. So we can go back and help people change the interpretation of an event. Because one interpretation would be my parents hated me and they abused me my whole life, you know. Well, the other one might be my parents didn't know any better. They were doing what happened to them when they did, and I can't. I'm not going to blame them for that. I'm disappointed. I'm sad that I happened to be the one that was in the way of the snowplow, you know. But so there's so many different ways that things can mean something different, but you have to go back and look at the event and say, what's another explanation for that? What's another explanation? And you can finally find one that relieves you of being, you know, an intended victim of something, and it just happened to be your collateral damage. Maybe, you know, your parents were dealing with all kind of other stuff, and you got in the way, and it wasn't personal at all, but you felt it personally, and you deal with it maybe decades later. You're still dealing with that same thing. So we can really help people assign new meanings to old events that changes the whole impact of it.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to take a little station break. You're listening to the New Reality Show with Dr. Art Emmerich and Dr. Christina Winsey. We're here because we want to help people right on the air with anxiety, stress, issues that are causing angst, causing problems in your life. We do laser coaching, and we have all kinds of solutions that we talk about, and we have handouts and things that we always give that are free. So we're glad you're tuning in. If you feel to call in and ask a question, 888-627-6008 is toll free in the United States, and outside the United States is 1-323-744-4831. That's dialing direct. I want to go back to how to develop self-love. And one thing that I think is an easier pill to swallow when you're having trouble with self-love is to find a way to be compassionate. And the way that I often have to coach people is to say, if you had a friend who was telling themselves the things that you're telling yourself, who was giving meaning to something, like let's say you had an experience and you gave it the meaning that you are worthless, or you gave it the meaning that you don't matter, or that you're just a stupid whatever, you know, whatever it is that your negative self-talk is saying. If you had a friend who was going through that, what would you say to that friend? You would certainly have much more compassion, much more understanding, and you wouldn't rub it in and tell them, oh, you stupid fool. You would be supporting them and helping them through it. And, you know, we all do stupid things. We all have arguments. We all have situations that we wish we weren't in. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to beat yourself up. In fact, it shouldn't mean that. It should mean that you're your own best advocate. So to start with the self-love process, it helps to step outside of yourself and imagine that you are your friend, and imagine that you are the best friend of you, and you're going to coach yourself through it and say, what is it I'm telling myself that this means? And is that really true? Asking yourself, you know, I'm telling myself that it means I'm stupid. Is that really true? No.
That
You know,
question about what else could this mean, you know, because
yeah,
there are hundreds of meanings that can go. And the key, I hope this is not getting to be too repetitive, is the meaning is what you put on it. There's no meaning in it at all in the event. You assign meanings. They all come right out of you. So if you don't like the meaning you're giving it, then go back and look for another one. And that's fair game. You really can't
right.
do that. Yeah.
Right. And so, but again, stepping back and treating yourself like you would treat a friend
Right.
is a way to almost remove yourself from the situation and look at it from a third person. And having a little bit more objectivity so that you can have the compassion
Right.
for what you went through.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a list here of steps for achieving self-love, and I'd like
Right.
to go through it.
Yeah.
The first is a deadly sin. It's kills self-love, and that is comparing yourself to others.
Hmm.
When you compare yourself to others, you're forgetting that you are unique in all the world. There was only one egg and one sperm that created you. And you may look like other people. There may be some people that also have red hair and also have a certain kind of nose and also are the same height and also have the same ethnicity. It's that doesn't matter. You are completely unique in all the world, and you have your special abilities. And so what somebody else is doing is really none of your business. And it doesn't matter, because we're not in a race. And I realize we are in a competitive world. I'm not I'm not downplaying that. You might audition for a part, and you could compare yourself to the other person that you heard in the room auditioning, or you could be going for a job and you could be comparing yourself to other candidates that you think might have this quality or that quality. But more importantly, it's focusing on, who am I and what do I have going for me?
And
And
relative to that thing about what others think of me, I just heard something yesterday that I thought was really good. It said, if you go around trying to please other people, everybody, and you think you're succeeding, it means you're not pleasing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That you count in that group of people that needs to be, considered. And if you're only considering what other people think of you or what they want you to do or be or say or whatever, then you're probably not pleasing yourself. So that's why this search for your core is that who am I really? And I don't ever want anybody to drag me away from that core. I want to stay that, because I think that's who I really am, And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Next one is to remember the phrase, what others think of me is not my business. And it's really about, we do a lot of things to people please,
Mhm.
and thinking that that we have to always worry about what other people are thinking. And the
Mhm.
funny thing, and not necessarily funny, haha, but kind of ironic, is that most people are thinking about themselves, not about you.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
most people are really thinking about themselves. And so I remember as a teenager being so self-conscious, but also as I grew, I began to realize, and it took a while. I mean, for young
Mhm.
people, especially teenagers, college, what other people think is a huge deal as
Right.
you're developing what you think about yourself. But it's really important to focus on yourself and what's good about you.
Mhm.
So not worrying about what other people think of you. So I love that phrase, what others think of me is not my business. The third one is, remember you are human, and that whatever you've done is not a crime. Beating yourself up mentally or emotionally every time you make a mistake is not being self-loving. What would you say to a friend? And we already talked about that. So really having that compassion, understanding that you're human, is one of the ways to develop self-love. Loving your body. So we talked about this, and we know that it's easier said than done. In fact, Dr. Art, you've said a number of times that you've lost clients for weight loss because you've asked them to do the mirror
Mhm.
loving themselves in the
Yeah.
mirror.
And they wouldn't
And
do it. They just said,
yeah,
I can't, I hate my body. I could never be able to do that. And I said, well, then I can't work with you because we're beat right from the start.
mm, hmm yeah, it's a toughie, but loving your body doesn't have to be, in the case of weight loss, I really get it, because that I'm a addiction recovery coach for eating addictions and weight loss, and I deal with women who have had a body image issue most of their lives. I suffered through one most of my life, until I got recovery. So I know how much we associate ourselves with our bodies, and even men have the problem. They had less so, but it just has become, how you look is who you are, is how our society seems to run itself, and how you look is not who you are. It's if you're judging your value based on the fact that your body doesn't look the way you want it to look, then you're really missing out on the beauty of who you are as a totality. And
There's an even more serious issue of what we call distortions. They've done some work recently that I was reading about with anorexia. And we look at that person and see just skin and bones. They look like they're near death. They look in the mirror and they see somebody who's fat and needs to lose weight. So it's
mhm,
literally a visual distortion. They don't see what they really look like. They see the image they have of themselves in their mind, and overrides the external view, and they never really see who they are. So there are things again that we can do to help people get back into the real reality of what's going on, and drop some of this artificial belief system around it.
absolutely. Um, Then I have, if there are people in your life who are hurting you mentally, physically, emotionally, um, it's time to figure out how to extricate yourself,
Mhm.
because it's not self-loving to stay in a relationship or a situation where you are being hurt.
Yeah, and that's where
And
these intimacy circles that we talked about are really helpful. There's a whole list of who makes me feel like this, and it's all these negative things, and you write the names down of the person. And the
mhm,
next list is who makes me feel like this, and that's all these positive, uplifting things. You write names down there, and so the intimacy circle is a way to, let's start moving those people out of the circle that are dragging me down, and put more people in that are building me up. And I'm probably in somebody else's intimacy circle in one of those two roles. I'm either building up or tearing down. And so we begin to clean up the people we hang around with, because they really reinforce a lot of what we believe. And so we have to be careful. Pick your friends carefully.
absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time. I just want to say the last one is developing an inner dialogue of self-support. Watching what you say to yourself at all times is really important. So if you're reinforcing negative, by saying negative things to yourself, then that's something that you want to start being aware of and changing. If you are saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm so stupid," you can stop yourself and say, "Wait a minute, that's not true. I am smart in this area, this area, this area." It's very important to refute the negative things that you say
Right.
to yourself.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I just want to say, next week we are going to have the author Sherry Sterling Fernandez. I'm very excited about having her on the show. Her book, Life Mastery, is personal progression toward an infinite potential. Sherry went through her own rags to riches. She went through a lot of suffering and heartache and was able to pull herself up and find her infinite potential. And she teaches others how to do that. I'm really excited about having her on the show next week.
She has a great story to tell.
Yes, she does. Yeah. Yes, she does. Dr. Art, thank you so much. It's been great being with you on the show. And
thank you. I'm not used to not being able to see myself, but maybe in another month I'll be courageous enough to get back on the screen when my mouth and my eyes get straightened out here.
Well, they will, because you're doing hypnosis, you're doing whatever you need to do to get well. And we will keep praying for you and seeing you as whole and everything working. Great.
Okay. I love it.
All right, folks. Well, we're sorry you didn't call in, but we hope you got some value. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Dr. Christina Winsey and Dr. Art Emmerich. We're signing off for tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this show, please consider being a supporter. You can find that on our show page. Tune in every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and find us on Facebook at facebook.com/New Reality Show for announcements of upcoming topics and exciting guest interviews. Bye for now.